Hey guys, Tabitha and Jerry here, and I would love for you to sit back and contemplate what imposter syndrome can do to you. You know, how it can hurt your career. Here's the thing, guys. If you have feelings of imposter syndrome, you can feel anxious at work. You know, where you find yourself spending Sunday dreading Monday rather than being present and relaxing in Sunday. Or it can have you procrastinating on that project because you're so afraid of failing. And then, of course, you fail. Or you could find yourself with unfinished projects and missed deadlines because of perfectionism used to actually cover up the feelings of imposter syndrome. And what about that time when you failed to raise your hand for that stretch project, that highly visible project at work, or for that promotion that you were well qualified for because of self-doubt? So there we are, guys. Unaddressed imposter syndrome could be sabotaging your career. So then, what is imposter syndrome? First, I want to say something. Imposter syndrome is a big word. And who wants to admit that they have experienced imposter syndrome? And yet, when the term was coined by Drs. Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes in 1978, they stressed the fact that imposter syndrome is not a psychological illness, but rather it is an emotional experience like hurt or anger or shame that one experiences over and over again. Guys, I really wish they had given it a different name. Now, imposter syndrome is that feeling where we doubt our capabilities or we feel unworthy of our achievements or the accolades that are tied to our achievements. It is also when one is perhaps wondering when the axe will finally fall and their colleagues will finally discover that they are not as good as their colleagues projected them to be. And guys, imposter syndrome manifests itself through anxiety, through perfectionism, through self-doubt, and through fear of failure. And guys, it is so pervasive in the workplace that the International Journal of Behavioral Science found that 70% of professionals have actually experienced it at some point at work. So you are not alone. But see this, guys, even if the name sucks, there is power in naming something, because when you identify it, you can acknowledge it and then you can work through it rather than remaining stuck in it, which causes the consequences that we discussed earlier. And when we realize that imposter syndrome is simply a feeling, an emotion like sadness, then we take the power away from the name. Hi guys, again, this is Tabitha and Jerry, and I help managers get the best out of their teams, smash their goals, and of course, sleep well at night. Thank you for being here. Now, in today's episode, we will cover practical tips that a manager can actually use to help themselves or their teams navigate through the emotion called imposter syndrome. And guys, as a reminder, there are 5 types of imposter syndromes, or rather 5 ways that we cover up the feeling of being an imposter or the feeling of incompetence. Now, I covered these 5 in detail in a previous article, which I will add to the comment section for your reference. But in summary, the 5 ways that people cover up the feeling of being an imposter or the feeling of incompetency, as laid out by Valerie Young, who's really an expert in this area, are the perfectionist, the expert, the superholic, also known as Superman or Superwoman, the natural genius, and the soloist. Managers, remember that just because you don't struggle with one area yourself doesn't mean that someone else doesn't. So empathy and compassion is important. So the question is, how can we as managers help our teams navigate through the fear and the shame that comes with imposter syndrome so that our teams can bring their best performance to work? Let's jump in to the 5. So let's start with number 1, the perfectionist. Now, the perfectionist is the one that uses perfection to cover up for feelings of being an imposter or feelings that they are unqualified or incompetent for the job. Now, they have impossibly high standards, and when they fail to meet those standards, they beat themselves up and they feel deep shame and obsess about the failure for days. So then how should you respond as a manager when you have a team member who's a perfectionist? Grab that pen and paper because I will focus on 2 barriers to the perfectionist's success and what you can do about it. Firstly, sloppiness is not their challenge, guys. These guys are high quality and quality driven. However, missed deadlines are their challenge because they need to feel that everything is done perfectly. I mean, even the inconsequential I's need to be dotted and the T's need to be crossed. And so, guys, when I work with perfectionists, I help them see that their 80% accuracy is everyone else's 100%. And I reassure them that some mistakes are a natural part of the process, and I help them delineate between acceptable mistakes versus the unacceptable ones. Now, the other big challenge, for the perfectionist is procrastination, which is driven by the need to overplan before they take any action. The goal here, guys, is to help them take the first step. And I like to ask the perfectionists this question: what is the next right action to take? And by having them focus only on the next right action, then they're less likely to feel stress and they're more likely to get past the mental roadblock. Number 2, the expert. Now, the expert uses depth of knowledge to cover up their feelings of being an imposter or being unqualified for the role. Now, even a minor lack of knowledge can actually create a feeling of failure or shame and actually have them worried that they would be exposed as unqualified or not knowledgeable enough. So then how should you respond as a manager? Hey guys, bear with me for doing this. I actually have to split this episode into 2 because it was too long to fit into the 10 minutes that I love to put the episodes into. So we're going to pause here, but then tomorrow I will drop the second part of this episode where we will finish talking about what you can do to support your experts on your team. We'll talk about what you can do to identify and support the superholics on your team, the natural geniuses, and the soloists. So it's exciting. Come back tomorrow. Thanks for your patience and drop a comment if you are enjoying this so far and can hardly wait for part 2 tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Tabitha and Jerry here.